West, would you please tell us how to be the perfect storm?
Thanks, Ellen. I really appreciate that. A couple of folks I want to introduce before I get started. Stephen Broden, who is also a member of your state Republican Executive Committee. Please stand up, Pastor Broden. And then also Matt Patrick. Matt Patrick is also a member of your state Republican Executive Committee. Both of them represents state Senate districts here in the Dallas area, so thank you very much. You know, one of the things that I think that we really have to do and make an effort of doing is we got to do, as it says in Proverbs 22:6. It says, train up a child in the way that they should go, so that when they grow old, they shall not depart from it. It was a couple of, few weeks ago, I got an email from a mother that asked, Carl, would you be so humble as to allow my son to shadow you and maybe be an intern with you over the summer? What a humbling thing. And so 15-year-old Maddox Vines is with me. Maddox, stand up. Sophomore, freshman at Trinity Christian Academy. That's our future. And each and every one of you needs to look and see, who can I take under my wing? Who can I mentor? You know, one of the great cultures that I like to study, being kind of a military historian, is the Spartan culture. At the age of 7, young Spartan boys were taken away from their family. They were put into this training camp called the Agoge. Very brutal, very tough. For 13 years to make a Spartan warrior. At the age of 20, that's when the Spartan warrior was awarded his shield. Not by a man, his father, but by his mother. And the Spartan mother would present the shield to the young Spartan warrior and say, Spartan, come back bearing this shield or being born upon it. Because the code of the Spartan warriors was no surrender and no retreat. And the key thing was that the Spartan warriors served for 40 years, retired at 60. But the older Spartans always had the responsibility to train and mentor the younger Spartans. When you want to talk about a storm, there was no fiercer force in ancient Greek history than the Spartans. So feared were the Spartans that the city-state of Sparta did not have a wall around it, because no one wanted to attack that city-state. So if you want to become that storm, you've got to invest in our future generations. You got to teach them and tell them about how special the United States of America is, how special Texas is. Because when you see what is happening in our country, in our state, with all of this critical race theory, I was with the people over in South Lake last night who stood up against this cultural competency action plan. They said they were not going to have their children be indoctrinated. And guess what happened? In most elections at the municipal level, and you know very well, council member, if you get 6% turnout, you get 8% turnout, you're thrilled. In South Lake, Texas, they had 41% turnout for their municipal election. And they won back city council seats, they won back school board seats, and they're going to continue to fight on. And you know what the margin of victory was? 72% to 28 to 30%. See, that's how you become a storm. Is when all of a sudden you plant your flag, you plant your standard, and you say that I will not surrender, I will not retreat, I will not give up ground, I will not be reticent, I will not be recalcitrant. The problem that has been with the Republican Party for too long is that we have been taking a plastic spoon to a gunfight. And you don't win a gunfight with a plastic spoon. When we are committed, when we understand our fundamental principles and values, when we realize that God did not call us, if I'm right, Pastor Broden, God did not call us into a spirit of fear. God told Joshua 3 times to be strong and of good courage in the very first chapter, in the very first verses. God, in Isaiah, it says No weapon formed against you shall prosper. And every tongue that rises against you in judgment, you shall condemn. But that's the heritage of those who love the Lord. In Romans, it says, if God be for us, who can be against us? And so when you talk about, this theme that we have here of the Star Wars, remember what Obi-Wan Kenobi said to Luke? Trust the Force. If we can just trust the force that is within us, if we can understand our fundamental values that are enshrined in our Constitution, our Declaration, and oh, by the way, this whole crap about America being established in 1619, when the first slave ship showed up, how absurd is that? But that's what our kids are being taught. And see, the important thing to understand with the progressive socialist left, if you don't know where you came from, you're going to be confused about where you are, and you're not going to be able to know where you're going. This is a wholehearted attempt for them to fundamentally change every aspect of the American culture, to include right here in Texas. It was not too long ago in Texas that you had to have an emergency board meeting of the Texas State Board of Education because someone came up with a brilliant idea in Texas State history books to remove the word heroic as it applied to the defenders of the Alamo. The Alamo has a real special place in my heart. Because I was born and raised in Georgia, and I kind of went north to this little school on the Tennessee River called the University of Tennessee. When you go down to the Alamo, you see that there are 5 Georgians whose names are there on the cenotaph. Well, you know that there are 38 Tennesseans. That's where we got that nickname from, Tennessee Volunteers. When you know that there was once upon a time a former member of Congress who, as history teaches us, was the last person to lose their life at the Alamo. But if our children are not being taught that, if our children don't understand what heroic is, then all of a sudden our children are going to believe that if you take a knee when the national anthem is being played, you're a hero. Because that's what the culture, that's what society is telling us. And see, the reason why I'm talking about this, we're going to take questions and answers. We can talk about the economy all day long. We can talk about the oil and gas industry all day long. We can talk about the border. I was just down in El Paso, stood on the border. Maybe some of you saw the video. We can talk about that all day long. But if you are to become a storm, you got to understand what you're fighting for. And too many of us in America don't understand what we're fighting for. This weekend is a very important weekend. Because this weekend we remember the men and women who made the last full measure of devotion for these great United States of America. But think about right now, if you're a member of our United States military, you're being spied upon, you're being surveilled in case you don't follow a certain ideology. You're being told that, you have to accept this way or else you're gone. When you have a member of the United States Air Force that is reprimanded because he spoke out against Marxism. Now, if you understand, those of you, how many soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, Coast Guardsmen we got here? Please stand up so we can thank you for your service. Come on. Every single one of these gentlemen who stood up, they took a simple oath to support and defend the Constitution of the United States of America against all enemies, foreign and domestic, to bear true faith and allegiance to the same. They took that obligation freely without any purpose of evasion or mental reservation, so help me God. When you study and understand what Marxism is the antithesis to the Constitution of the United States of America. But it's the antithesis to the Constitution of the United States of America. But yet, right not too far away from us, at Grapevine High School, I'll use my Army voice. Not too far away from us, at Grapevine High School, they have a Marxist club. In Texas.
If you're going to be the storm, you can't allow your kids to be taught Marxism. Not just on the college and university campuses, but in high schools. And it's starting to get down into the middle schools. Why do you think they want more free education? Why do you think they want more free pre-K? Because they want the access to your children. And if you're going to be a storm, you've got to inculcate your principles and your values into your children. Or else they're going to grow up and they're going to take the streets and they're going to say America's a racist nation. America's a horrible nation. Standing before you right now is a kid that was born in 1961 in the inner city of Atlanta, Georgia, in a blacks-only hospital. And how is it? In 60 years, a kid born in a blacks-only hospital can grow up to become a lieutenant colonel in the United States Army, command a battalion of 600 in combat. And my dad was just a corporal in the Army in World War II, in a segregated army. Born in the inner city of Atlanta, Georgia, in a blacks-only hospital, that becomes a member of the United States House of Representatives, that represented a congressional district that was 93% white. And oh, by the way, there was a little house on one in that district called Mar-a-Lago. And there was a great man that I had the opportunity to sit down and have private dinners with. His name was Rush Limbaugh. Because Palm Beach Island was in the congressional district that I represented. How can it be, if America's a racist nation, that a kid born in a blacks-only hospital can grow up and 50 years after he was born, he is now the congressional representative of a piece of South Florida along Fort Lauderdale Beach and Palm Beach Island, where people that looked like me could not have gone when I was born. How is it that a kid born in a blacks-only hospital could be the chairman of the largest Republican state party in the United States of America? And oh, by the way, remember that you are members of a Republican Party of Texas that was founded by 150 black men on Independence Day of 1867 in Houston. We're not racist. We are powerful people. But you can't be a storm if you don't know your history. You can't be a storm if you don't know your principles and if you're not committed to them. I am tired of seeing Republicans believe that the only way we can be successful is to be a lesser version of the other side. That is unconscionable. The fact that we are here in Texas, where we are allowing our children to be chemically and physically castrated, and Republicans are in charge of the House and the Senate and the governor's mansion, and that bill died. That's not being a storm. That's unconscionable to me. So the challenge for us is very simple. Either you're courageous, or you're going to give away the greatest blessing, which is Texas, and the greatest nation that the world has ever known. If we're to be a storm, people are looking for us to stand up. There are people all across the United States of America that are looking to Texas. Texas just, in the House and Senate, passed a constitutional carry bill. And if you're confused about constitutional carry, this is what it means. It means that if you are a legal, law-abiding citizen that goes and passes a 4473 background check, that's your weapon. Because in these United States of America, the only permit that you need is this thing right here. The Constitution of the United States of America. You do not need to beg anyone to be able to have a firearm. Now, if you want to get a permit, The permit allows you to have reciprocity when you're traveling outside the state of Texas. But folks, here's your permit. 20 other states in the United States of America has constitutional carry. Bernie Sanders in Vermont has constitutional carry. Yeah. Buffy, mittens, whatever they call it. Mitt Romney in Utah has constitutional carry. But big, bad Texas still waiting for a signature. If we're to be a storm, either we stand up and understand our constitutional rights and freedoms. No elected official has the enumerated power to say who or what is essential in the United States of America. Right. Benjamin Franklin once said, those who would surrender essential liberty for temporary security will in the end deserve neither liberty nor security. You want to be a storm? Stop allowing people to tell you you can't come out of your house. Stop allowing people to tell you that you have to have some face covering. We live in a constitutional republic. We don't live under a dictatorship. We follow the rule of law, not rules, orders, mandates, and edicts. But if you don't have the strength and the courage to stand up and declare that, then you're rewarding that bad behavior. And it will continue. If you're going to be a storm, you got to leave out of these doors here tonight and be committed to make a stand. Here's my challenge to you. I know that you all have 5 people that you know that don't think and believe as you do. 5 people that believe that progressive socialism is okay. That being a victim is okay. That the collective subjugation of the masses is okay. 5 people that probably believe that economic enslavement is better than economic empowerment. 5 people that don't think that America is a great country and that Texas is the lone star that illuminates the other 49 on the Stars and Stripes. What I need you to do is get 3 of those people to think differently, and especially women. Because think about the suburban soccer moms that voted for the other guy. I don't think those suburban soccer moms believe that gender dysphoric biological males should be playing on the soccer field with their daughters. But that's where we are. And oh, by the way, with a Republican majority in the House and the Senate in Texas, a Republican governor, we couldn't even pass a bill that said that boys don't play with girls on a sports field. Texas. That's not being a storm. 5 can get 3. We are coming up on the most critical election cycle for the future and the legacy of this constitutional republic. The left is going to implement their agenda. They're doing it by executive order. Everything. To include leaving our borders unprotected and telling ICE and Border Patrol agents they don't have to do their duties and responsibilities. If we don't resume control of these United States of America from a legislative perspective and honor and stand by the rule of law, be the storm that we're supposed to be, then ask yourself on this Memorial Day and all future Memorial Days, then why did those men and women make the last full measure of devotion so that you could just give it away? This weekend, if you want to be a storm, go and walk through the gardens of stone. Go and look at those grave sites. And remember those men and women who said much the same as it says in Isaiah 6 and 8. When the Lord said, "Whom shall we send? Who will go for us?" Isaiah stood up and said, here am I, send me. They lay there, committed to each and every one of you. I know because my dad's in the National Cemetery. And my father-in-law is buried in the National Cemetery. My older brother will be buried in the National Cemetery. I will be buried in the National Cemetery. And my nephew, who is a lieutenant colonel in the Army, will be buried in the National Cemetery. But I will not go to my grave believing that I gave away the greatest blessing that God has given the world, the United States of America, and the great state of Texas. You want to be a storm? Fight for it. And use the force to encourage you, to empower you, and to embolden you. God bless you all. What's on your mind? Yes, ma'am.
Our club has spent the last month or longer making calls, sending postcards, writing emails to the 87th legislature, and it seems like nothing has been accomplished.
The question is that this club has been sending out, cards and notices and making calls, and it doesn't seem like it made any difference in the 87th legislative session. Well, guess what Albert Einstein said? The pure definition of insanity is to continue to do the exact same thing and think you're going to get different results. What do? Do you send them back again as a state representative or a state senator? You've got a choice to make. People are supposed to be there to represent you, to be your voice. When you talk about legislative parties, they're supposed to get those legislative parties passed. There's one thing you know. If the other side is in control, you know what you're going to get. But why is it that we continue to see our side just knuckle under and not stand up for what we believe in? You've got to encourage people. Because this is too important. A woman in, I think it was Montgomery, Alabama, who said, I'm not going to go to the back of the bus. Simple lady. And the courage that it took. Sometimes you may have to face a little pain in the temporary. But think about 183 who stood there for 13 days from the 23rd of February, 1836, to the 6th of March of 1836. They looked out there and they saw 3,000 to 4,000. A 26-year-old was in charge at the Alamo. 26, William Barrett Travis. Tonight, go home and read the letter that he wrote. And I'm sure on that final day, when they came over, they knew that they were all going to be slaughtered. Because Santa Anna, they played that tune. And they raised the black flag of no quarter. They didn't run away. They didn't retreat. They didn't surrender. And so you may have to face a little temporary pain. But when you look over here at Maddox, or when you think about my grandson, who's just 1 week old, I'll take that temporary pain so that he can live in freedom. So sometimes sacrifice is called freedom. Of a time for the United States of America and for Texas. When you look at all of the folks that are coming to Texas, remember we're picking up 2 new congressional districts. One of those congressional districts will be somewhere up here in North Texas because of the incredible explosion of population. We got to win those congressional districts. And I need you to engage the people that are moving here into North Texas. Coming from California, Illinois, New York, New Jersey, Michigan, or wherever. All of those places that lost congressional representation because population is fleeing. And so that's what I need you to do. You've got to tell the story to these new people that are coming here and say, don't vote like you are back at the other place. Failure. That's the pure definition of insanity. But then also, you've got to start challenging the people that are supposed to represent you. tell them to represent